Yay! Here we are for day 3. I am so excited. That countdown music just gets me so pumped and so ready to just do this. I have to say that today I have a special cup of tea. One of my friends sent me an early birthday gift, and it's called Flowering Tea. And it's a green tea, and it's a little bud, right? The leaves are all wrapped into this little bud, and you put it in the hot water and it actually blooms. It is incredible. I love it. I'm used it for 2 cups, so this is like a week version of the first cup. But I am so excited. So if there is caffeine in it, I'm extra pumped tonight. But anyway, I'm excited you're here. Remember, you do need to hit that StreamYard link. If you are in Facebook, it allows StreamYard to access your name and profile pic. I know I say that every day, but if you're new around here or you didn't get it the first 2 times, I'm just reminding you that you may have to do it again. So tell me you're here, drop it in the chat. Let's get started. What you can expect again for today is strategies, mindsets, and habits all week on helping you implement your Eat More Plants goal. So Monday, if you missed day 1, that was all about developing, identifying, and really solidifying your why behind your plant-based goal. Yesterday, we talked about some really important habits, reframing your plate, lots of mindset there, as well as your daily affirmations. So drop in the chat and let me know if you said your daily affirmations today, because I do every time I make a decision on the foods that I'm going to eat. I am eating healthy, plant-based, whole foods, mostly unprocessed, so that I can achieve my weight loss goal. Drop a hey, let's know that you're here. The replays of all of these sessions will be available in the guides section of Facebook until Wednesday morning, the 17th at 8 a.m. That's when I'll pull them down. They will also be available on YouTube until that same time. They get pulled down because this is a free workshop that I deliver, pour my heart into, and I want to make sure that you watch it in a time frame that allows you to really jump on that goal and really get started and get kicked off. If you're new around here, I'm a real person. I travel in an RV with my husband and my 3 cats. There are always times when one of them wants to say hi to the camera. So probably not John, but more the cats. So don't be surprised if one of the cats jumps up on the table to say hi. Today's session is very interactive. I want you to bring your questions about plant-based foods. I've eaten on all ends of the plant-based vegan spectrum, except raw. I tried it, but really I didn't love not having cooked foods. So I only dabbled in that for a little while. But I've eaten everything from vegan junk food all the way to whole food, plant-based, mostly unprocessed. So bring those questions. I will talk for about 15 minutes, helping you fill in your workbook, get really good ideas. While I'm talking, if you come up with questions, drop them in the chat. Let me know you're here. Again, Facebook users, if you want me to know that I'm talking specifically to you, I put a link in the chat as well as in the description of the video on Facebook. You can just hit see more, and it's a StreamYard link. It's StreamYard.com/Facebook. It allows StreamYard to see who's commenting. It's just a permission that Facebook requires. So here we are, day 3 of our Eat More Plants workshop. I am Kathy Davis, your host, a plant-based lifestyle coach, recipe developer, cookbook author, and the CEO of Veg Inspired. I help people every day successfully transition to a plant-based diet, providing practical tips, strategies, and easy and delicious recipes without adding stress in the kitchen. If you lean into my ideas, my tactics, my habits, my strategies, and follow through, I promise you will relieve and alleviate some of that stress and overwhelm. Okay, today's focus is going to be on plant-based foods and meal ideas. Just want to check who's here. I've got tons of comments in the chat. I just want to say hi. Look at this, 10,000 steps, Beverly, Laura, Louise, Robin, Meg, Scoots in My Way, Can't More Bark Less, Megan, Kansas, Donna, love that you said your affirmations. Vanessa, So dairy cheese is a no-no on a plant-based or vegan diet because it is an animal-based product. It is also high in fat and cholesterol, which we know we don't want to add more cholesterol. So it's also a processed animal, a processed animal product. So that is why it's a no-no. I can share more direct resources from our favorite plant-based doctors on the effects of things like cheeses. It's also very addictive. So it is, one of those foods that you don't want to start with. In fact, I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. We find, at least in my work, I found that vegetarians have a more difficult time transitioning to a plant-based diet because of the addictive properties of cheese. So it basically has casein, which is a form of similar to the addictive properties of morphine. And I can share more information about that. Feel free to direct message me on Facebook. I know you're a Facebook user. It doesn't say who you are. Sue, I see that you're here. Again, if I'm telling you that I don't know who you are, it's because that silly StreamYard that I use to go into both the Facebook and YouTube requires permissions. So if you're just joining in, I'm just checking into the chat saying hey to my pals that are in there. And I want to get started. Again, today is going to be a super interactive session. I'll talk for about 15 minutes. Do bring those questions to me. And I say we get into this pantry and recipe idea training. Okay, so pantries. Keeping a well-stocked pantry is super helpful when transitioning to this way of eating, but I always have to tell you, my number one tip is meal planning, and I talk very much into that tomorrow. So be sure to mark your calendars for tomorrow's session on meal planning. But having a well-stocked pantry is important. And when I say that, I don't mean, you're backed up to, 10 years from now in rice and beans. What I'm talking about is variety. So I want to share with you today 5 foods that you probably already have in your pantry that are plant-based. And then I'm going to add in 3 more, my top 8, that I think are really, really helpful in making this transition as well as just flavoring your foods. So having these ingredients on hand is especially helpful if you are in one of those multi-preference households. My trademark name again, those households where there's people in your space, in your home that are eating foods that are unaligned with your goals, right? We've all been there, and I've told you this before on my plant-based lifestyle. I put myself in a space right after adopting whole food cheesecake and that. When you have those options at hand, it's difficult to not indulge, right? So by having the ingredients that align with your goal on hand, readily available, and of course, they need to be ingredients you like. If I say, oh yeah, I have oats on hand, and you're like, I hate oats, then let's find something else. Let's work together and find something else. I've tried pretty much every breakfast grain on the market, that especially if Bob's Red Mill sells it, because we went through a phase, bought all of the grains, tried. We've got a cookbook from him that he signed at one of the events we went to that has a bunch of breakfast recipes. So I'm happy to share other grains if you don't love oats, but that was just an example. So oats is actually at the top of my list. It would be number 1 in my top 8. So to fill in that first section, keeping a well-stocked pantry is especially important if you have other people in your home or your space that are eating foods that do not align to your goal. That's the first section on the workbook. So now into those top 5 foods you might already have that are plant-based. Oats. What can you do with oats? So through this, I'm going to tell you my top foods, and then I'm going to give you some ideas. Oats can be used for oatmeal, either warm or overnight oatmeal, or you can do a version of that where I actually have that recipe on my website. I call it an oat bowl. It is like a 30-minute soaked oat. So it's kind of like muesli where I add a bunch of other, dried fruits, nuts, things like that. But I don't soak it overnight and I don't eat it warm. It's more like a cereal. You can also make cookies with oats. You can grind these, and I'm talking specifically about old-fashioned rolled oats, but you could have steel cut oats. You could have quick cooking oats. It just depends on how you're going to use them. You can grind your oats down into a flour. I do that and use it for baking. You could put your oats in smoothies. And then some other breakfast grains, if you don't love oats, you could try spelt flakes. We actually do a really cool crock pot spelt recipe where you put the spelt flakes in the crock pot and cook them in there for 4 hours. And they're creamy and delicious. Amaranth is another good breakfast grain. You could do cereal. And your oats don't have to be sweet. You can actually cook them in savory sauces and make a savory oat. The next thing on my list that you might already have in your house are beans or legumes. You can use those for soups, dips, hummus, side dishes. You can top your bowls, your salads with beans or lentils. You can make curry. So there's lots of different options that you can do to kind of expand out how you can stretch out those beans into something else. And then we have I call them our dinner grains, but you could use them anytime. And rices, things like that. So quinoa is really a seed, but I categorize it into the grains. Farro is really good. It's a great replacement for pasta. If you kind of struggle with the processed pastas, you could try cooking farro. It has a really nice earthy and like chewy texture. It is a wheat grain, but I have heard people who have a gluten intolerance that are okay with it. So if you do have gluten sensitivity, you would obviously not want to use farro. Things like millet, sorghum, you could try brown rice, forbidden rice, or that black purple rice, wild rice, all of these things that you may have in your pantry, they already are plant-based. And as we talked yesterday, really embrace those. Right? If your family's already eating that, make that the center of the meal. Do a big rice dish or a farro bake with other veggies. Get those ingredients into the center of your meal. Things you might have on hand, again, vegetables. You probably have fresh vegetables, frozen vegetables, canned vegetables like tomatoes, artichokes. So those can all be used for easy plant-based recipes. And think outside the box. Maybe you have a bunch of frozen veggies that you can throw into a soup, or maybe you can thaw some of those frozen veggies or partially cook them, out of the freezer and then roast them so they get that nice char on them that makes them, have a different texture than just steamed or boiled vegetables. And then my number 5, I always put potatoes in their own category. I know they're like a root vegetable it's not really what they're called. But I think they deserve their own category. They are the center of the foods that I ate to lose 35 pounds. So I do not dismiss them as just something you might have. They were the main dish in pretty much every recipe I ate. And if you go back and watch any of my older YouTube videos from about a year ago, they were the star of our show. We ate them as twice baked potatoes. We ate them as armadillo potatoes, which were kind of like tater tots. We ate them in pizza potatoes. We ate them in a kale and mustard sauce potato dish. So if you want any of those recipes, let me know. Anything that I mention is typically a recipe that I've either cooked myself from someone else's cookbook or is on veginspired.com or on our YouTube channel. I do have some recipes that I mentioned that are in the cookbook. I'm trying to keep that separate. I want to make sure that the recipes that I tell you today and talk to you about are accessible to you, maybe without having to purchase my cookbook. Not that I don't want you to buy it. I'm just trying that. This isn't salesy. This is me really helping and supporting you. So those are my top 5. Let's go through those again. Oats or some kind of breakfast grain, beans, legumes, lentils, things like that, grains, veggies, frozen, fresh, or canned, and then potatoes. So we had oats was number 1, beans, lentils number 2, grains number 3, veggies, fresh, frozen, or canned number 4, and potatoes number 5. So those are the top 5 that I say you probably have in your pantry. And I really want to make sure that we have some great ideas for you to cook those. I'm going to pop into the chat before I move into my other 3. Let's see. Hi, Kim. Laura. So I don't eat a lot of vegan cheeses. Miyoko's one of my favorites. We also like the Chow cheese. It really depends on the application. We love Miyoko's for, a vegan pizza because you can shred it. She has a vegan mozzarella. And then we love Chow cheese in a cheese and mustard sandwich. That's one of our go-to quick sandwiches if we are eating that. Let's see. Hi, Danielle. Yeah, definitely easier if there's no foods in the house. Yes, can't more bark less. Okay, so that is one of my favorite cheeses is the Follow Your Heart Parmesan in the tub. It is so good, and really, as Can't More Bark Less said, you can't really tell the difference. Love potatoes, potato pizzas. I can do that. I got number 4 back to you. It was veggies, fresh, frozen, or canned. The kale and potato recipe. Parmesan truffle fries were good. Kale and mustard. Okay, truffle fries are awesome. Now you guys want me have me wanting truffle fries. It's a good thing I have some truffle stuff in the cupboard. I'm gonna have to do that. Okay, so those are likely ingredients that you have. They're easy. They're not actually a processed food, right? All of those things are something that you can buy off the shelf. You don't have to read the ingredients on, well, let me back up. You might have to read the ingredients on some canned vegetables. In fact, I was actually surprised to find a container of, it was like prepared herb. It was a prepared herb and it had whey in it. And I was like, why do they have whey, which is a derivative of dairy, in an herb that's found in the produce section? I was so mad. I was mad. Anyway, so double check those. So I guess I do have to caveat and say sometimes you might find milk powder in something random, but for the most part, you shouldn't have to read the labels. Moving into my next 3. So when I'm cooking a recipe, it typically comes from one of those. It typically has a base or start of either potatoes, a grain, or a bean. And then I supplement it with, oats. So oats, beans, grains, or potatoes. And then I supplement it with vegetables. But sometimes I want a sandwich or a pita or tortillas. So I always recommend having some kind of whole grain on hand. I like Ezekiel Bucks. They're as clean as bread can get. They actually come in the frozen section of your grocery store. So I keep them in the freezer, the pita breads, the corn tortillas, their regular tortillas, and then their breads and English muffins. The cinnamon raisin bread is amazing with nut butter on it. It's so good. I also like O-Doughs. It's a gluten-free option. Some of them do contain oil, but it's great for my gluten-free friends. I do like that. I like Dave's Killer Bread. They've changed their formula and they do add oil to some of their breads. But I feel like these are some options that you can look for in the store. There's also a company called, I think it's Manna. It's MANNA. They're also in the freezer section. They have more of like a sweet, it's almost like artisan bread. And it's really good. And we found it when we were in Florida, in the freezer section at one of the Whole Foods that we were shopping in. It's MANNA. And then, is it my Wi-Fi or your Wi-Fi? Oh no. I see your questions. I hope it's not my Wi-Fi. Can you hear me okay? Anybody? John, I'm having an issue. Can you hear me now? I think my internet switched me to another internet. I don't know what the internet problem is. Okay, I hope you can hear me now. It sounds like, okay, you guys are saying yes, so I'm gonna keep going. So the breads that I like are Ezekiel, and then O-doughs for a gluten-free option. It's O and then the word dough, D-O-U-G-H. And then I like, let's see, what else did I say? Manna bread and Dave's Killer bread. Okay, so that was number 6, whole grain bread products or like tortillas and things like that. Number 7 are my soy products, tofu, tempeh, soy curls. You could also add into that list, if you don't like soy, things like jackfruit or seitan. These are more of those, I'm going to call them clean protein options. So I personally like to use firm tofu. I use it for scrambles and for baking. I also use tempeh. I do a lot of tempeh now in my tempeh bacon recipe. So that's an option. And then soy curls I typically have to order them either directly from Butler Foods or Amazon. And they're a dehydrated soy product that you can rehydrate. There's also textured vegetable proteins. TVP is what it's called. And that's a defatted soy. So I use that in things like sloppy joes, and I do have a recipe for a pizza sloppy joe. So that's another section. That's number 7, your tofu, your tempeh, your soy curls, things like that. I wanted to give some clean, so they're oil-free, low processed, or low ingredient products that I do use. Upton's, their seitan does not have oil, and then No Evil, their products do not have oil. So if you were looking for an oil-free mock meat, those would be the 2 that I would recommend. Sunshine Burgers and Good Seed Burgers also have a couple of oil-free options. Okay, so number 8 is really all about flavor. These are your sauces, so barbecue sauce, pizza sauce, spaghetti sauce, things like that. They're also your vinegars. These are the things that you keep on hand in your pantry to splash into a soup to add some more flavor. You know, maybe you throw a little bit of balsamic vinegar into, a brothy soup just to add a little bit of pizzazz. Or I like to purchase glass bottles of organic lemon and lime juice. So I don't usually buy fresh lemons and limes unless I need them for photos. So I'll buy an organic, the only ingredient is the juice, bottle of juice, and I'll use that in my recipes, and it works out great. Also, because I use so much lemon and lime for flavor, it's very economical. And then condiments like ketchup, mustard, whole grain mustards. If you can find oil-free salad dressings, those are good to have on hand. Tahini. I would actually put miso under number 8, and that's good because I definitely would have forgotten to mention miso, and I use miso a lot in place of salt in recipes. This would also be where I would add things like soy sauce or tamari. You could do a low sodium soy sauce, or tamari's a gluten-free alternative. This is where I would add Bragg's liquid aminos. This is also where I would add, that's a noisy truck. This is also where I would add spices and herbs. So some spices and herbs that I keep on hand at all times are garlic powder, onion powder, cumin, coriander, oregano, dill. I have an article on the blog on veginspired.com about my pantry spices. I also am really keen on salt-free blends. I think I mentioned that the other day. There is one that has a hot pepper or cayenne or something in it. It's a little spicy, but I like those. I like to keep those on hand. And then I always have fresh cilantro in the fridge. It's one of my favorite herbs. I like to have basil. A lot of times you can add them to, a fresh recipe. You can add them to a sandwich. You can put them in a bean salad, and those fresh herbs just really help to bring out the flavor and, enhance the salads. So I'm going to hop back into the chat before I keep going. Miso. So we keep miso around, I don't know, a couple of months. I don't know that it's really high in salt and as a preserve, like the salt is really, it's a fermented paste. So I can't imagine that it would go bad. We always make sure to seal. It usually has some kind of plastic thing on top of it. So we always make sure we press that down to keep it fresh. The brands of meats. Let me go back over the brands of meats. So the mock meats that do not have oil that I have found are No Evil. You can order them online from their site directly, or you can get them usually at Amazon, not at Amazon, at Whole Foods, or they may be on like Vegan Essentials. And then Good Seed has clean burgers. And then Sunshine Burgers are clean burgers that you can find. And then Upton's Seitan. They're out of Chicago, and they do not have oil in their products. So occasionally we'll use like their Italian seitan for goulash or something like that. We don't eat those processed foods a lot though. Sometimes we'll just flavor tempeh or tofu with sausagey flavors and use that instead. Let's see. Pizza. Miso was under that. So I do try to stay away from bleached breads and flours. I'm not 100% perfect on that, but it's really kind of one of I go for a lower processed option. Again, I've been making this change for 6 years. So if you're brand new, I'm going to say some of these things are maybe way too far along on the journey, but they're all good ideas to have in the back of your mind as you're making those educated choices at the grocery store. Sorry, Eddie is really looking for some love right now. He's all in it. As you're making educated decisions at the grocery store. So yes, a lot of the salad dressings are full of oil because they use that in lieu of what would normally be in that. If you do really love to have, creamy salad dressings, message me. I have a couple that I've been making regularly. A super easy one would be dressing your greens or salad with seasoned rice vinegar and then a drizzle of tahini. But I also have a tahini blue cheese inspired dressing, and I've been working on a ranch, so I'd be happy to send that over. I do see what's wrong with oil. So on a whole food plant-based diet, it is, Sonia, thank you, and Beverly, yes, you got it. Highly processed, very high calorie content, and it doesn't have the nutritional value. So you get more out of eating the whole ingredient. So instead of olive oil, you get more out of eating the olive. Instead of avocado oil, you get more out of eating the avocado. So it's just been found with the plant-based doctors. Their recommendations are that you eat the whole plant food for your healthy fats versus the oil. And I do want to I do have some cooking classes planned, and one of them is going to be cooking without oil, because I think that is one of those topics that can really get people stuck. I've been cooking with oil my whole life. How do I cook without it? And that's something I want to help. Okay, I'm way over I'm going to only talk for 15 minutes. I've been talking forever. So one of the reasons why I share this list with you is that it's really important for me to help you understand that the foods that I primarily eat can be found at every grocery store. So if you don't know, I travel full time in an RV. I sold my house. We travel in the RV. We're going to all the national parks. That is our goal. So I'm rarely visiting the same grocery store more than a couple of times. So I had to really kind of think plant-based meals relying on specific brands. So yes, of course, if I can find my favorite brands, I will support them and buy them, as we're traveling. But a lot of times I'm just picking, the plant-based ingredients, right? The beans, the lentils, the potatoes, the rices, and the sauces. Nothing in my list above should be super challenging to find. You may have trouble finding miso, depending on where you are. That is one that we've had some challenges with. I think we had to order it off Amazon the last time. And then we always order the Mighty Sesame Tahini off Amazon. It is 100% our favorite. It's easy to use. It's in a squeeze bottle, and it's really good. So as you are, stocking your pantry, getting some of these new ingredients in there and really starting to make this change, I encourage you to read the labels, especially for the items sorry, Eddie's clawing me, especially for the items under number 8. And then find your favorites and keep an eye on them at your grocery store. So we were in Chattanooga, Tennessee for the whole summer, and we fell in love with the Publix brand barbecue sauce. But we're not near Publix anymore. And a lot of the barbecue sauces that we find in the grocery stores in Texas aren't necessarily aligned with our way of eating. So I've either been making my own barbecue sauce or really scrutinizing the labels to ensure that the sauces don't have honey or animal products or oil or a lot of sugar. We aren't sugar-free, but we do, we are conscious of how much sugar we are using. And then I also am telling you all of this because I want to help build your flexibility in this way of eating. So the town that we're in right now does not have firm tofu. They have silken tofu and they have extra firm at both grocery stores. So I don't know why. I've always had an option. I've never had an issue of finding firm tofu. So I really want to kind of help build your flexibility by giving you different ideas. Now, what you also noticed when I shared my list is that while I did share a few of those cleaner mock products, and of course I answered your questions about cheeses and things like that, I did not say in order to eat plant-based, you need to buy the processed, expensive mock products. And that is because my philosophy is you can make this work without having to spend a fortune on all of those processed products. There's nothing, other than that they're highly processed, there's really nothing wrong with them. Like, I love that we're in a society in a time of life that they have so many of these options available, but I want to make sure that I equip you to be both flexible in your decisions as well as eating to align with your goal. So I want you to get your questions into the chat. Be sure to take advantage also of our of this time that we have together. I probably have another 20 minutes that we can keep chatting. So get those questions into the chat. I also want to invite you to book your complimentary implementation call with me. This is in addition to those of you who've booked your 15-minute clarity call. This is actually, we dig further into what you've been learning, what your goal is, your struggles, those obstacles, and we really start to set you on the implementation path of this workshop. So I have that. I was going to drop it in the chat, but I have to get into Facebook to do that. So, because my internet's so unstable, I don't want to. So I will put that, I'll put a post in the Facebook group and I'll add it to the replay link, but it is a Calendly link. So I use Calendly to help manage my calendar. So you actually can click right on the link and it will take you to my available time slots, and then you can pick a slot that works for you. This is complimentary. It's part of the workshop, and it's really to get you kicked off on that path to success since the workshop's only for another week. So keep those questions coming. I wanted to invite you there. And then one of the big things I want you to be able to have as a takeaway today is to really be able to say, okay, I've got potatoes, beans, spinach, which I didn't even talk about that. I guess that falls under fresh veggies, and avocados in my fridge or on my pantry. What can I make? I can make tacos. I can make a taco bowl. I can bake the potatoes into French fry wedges or into sliced discs and use them kind of for nachos, right? You could do potatoes with beans, greens, and then some guacamole or chopped up avocado. Or you could sub in rice or quinoa for the potatoes and make a taco bowl or a burrito bowl. So I want these ideas to kind of be, I want your workbook to have where you've written these ideas in there, right? You've got your meal ideas. You've got some nice to have ideas. So some other things that I wanted to mention is if you have, I did not talk about plant milk. Plant milk is a staple in our house. We use the Eden or the West soy milk. We typically buy a soy milk that is organic soybeans and water only, unsweetened. It's great in coffee if you're looking for a coffee replacement. It also works really well in baking. So if you have oats, plant milk, and a fruit, you can make smoothies. You can make oatmeal. You can make overnight oats, baked oats. You can ditch the milk and make cookies with oats and dried fruit and some nut butters. We talked about those on Monday with the tahini. I put that in the Facebook group and in the replay. You could take your fresh veggies and add them to a cooked grain or starchy potatoes. So I really kind of want to take this time and share with you 3 pantry items to create easy plant-based meals. So I mentioned using tahini as a dressing for your salad. You can also use tahini swapping it out for nut butter or oil in a cookie recipe. So if you have a favorite cookie recipe, you can sub tahini in for the oil or butter. You can also mix it with lemons, herbs, and beans for a fun dip, which is hummus, but you don't actually have to process it up. You could just slightly mash it and it could be a salad filling, right? Or a sandwich filling. So I always say it's like chickpea salad sandwich, kind of like tuna salad. So lemon, herbs, tahini, some water, kind of mix it up and it makes this creamy, delicious sauce that you can mix with other ingredients to make a sandwich filling. And then beans, so chickpeas, kidney beans, black beans, you can roast them with your vegetables. I mentioned that the other day. They get this great slightly chewy texture and they start to begin to crack. They're perfect to top a bowl or as a taco filling. You can mash your beans into a dip, or you can mix them with ingredients and make like a Texas caviar style dip, like a whole bean dip. You can add beans to pasta for a protein-packed meal. So think about like traditional Italian cooking where they do beans and greens. So you might do beans and greens and some noodles, or beans and greens and spaghetti squash. So kind of think about how you can, take some traditional meals that you love and use veggies to really pull in that plant-centered focus. So I want to answer your questions about plants, plant foods specifically, but I also want to give you some homework. So your homework is going to be to identify some ingredients you don't have, or some ingredients that you do have and want to use a new way. So if you read the bottom of your workbook, we're looking for ingredients you don't have, add them to your list and let me know what they are, and I'll send you a message. So if you're like, I totally want to try soy curls, or I want to try potatoes as the main dish in your pizza potatoes or something like that. I want you to think of that. And then the other part of the homework is you might have that's more of that. You might have the ingredients, the potatoes, things like that, but you want new ways to use them. So I really want to show you how you can bounce ideas off of me, use me as support, and really kind of dig into, you know, how can I share my experience with you and be here to support you as you're going through this new journey. So get your questions in the chat. Your homework, again, any ingredients you don't have that you want to add to your pantry, I want to hear about those so I can share some recipes. Since you're trying something new, I want to give you a tried and true recipe to use with it. And then any ingredients you do have, but you want a new, fresh recipe for, send me. Help build your recipe resources with the homework for today. So really, I feel like I'm assigning myself homework, but you have to message me. So we are going to get into that. I want to get into these questions. And if you do have questions on the homework, just let me know. I got to scroll up. Okay. Okay, so Sonia, you are awesome. Thank you for dropping those into the chat. Sonia put in my staple sauce recipes, my blog post into the chat for you, so you guys can click on that and open that and look at that later. Expensive mock products. So that, what I'm referring to are, you know, yesterday we talked about the $10 Miyoko's vegan cheese. So when I see those products in the marketplace and I hear somebody tell me that plant-based eating is expensive, I can't disagree, right? If you're buying a $10 block of vegan cheese, that is expensive. So I try to lean away from those, encouraging those expensive products, because plant-based eating at its heart, right? Whole food plant-based eating with whole ingredients is not expensive. Potatoes are dirt cheap, and rice is cheap, and beans are cheap, especially if you cook your own. So when I lean away from those mock products, it's not because I don't love them and didn't spend a lot of time eating them in my early vegan days. It's more about helping guide you to those whole plant-based foods. So I use tofu in place of eggs. I've tried tofu scrambles with silken tofu. It's a little bit, you have to cook it a little bit longer because it has more water, but a lot of people like that texture because it's more of like that creamy scrambled egg kind of texture. The best way to make it taste eggy is to add in a little black salt. And I mean a pinch of black salt. Black salt has that sulfury taste, which is what gives it that egg taste, and is what is likely used. I have not looked into the Just Egg product other than to know that it exists. They likely use that to give it that eggy taste. Just Egg is a processed product, a processed egg replacer. So if you're just eating the egg or looking for, so if you want to replace scrambled eggs, I would do scrambled tofu. If you want to replace like a fried egg, I like to lightly salt and pepper firm tofu and bake it at 400 degrees for 20 minutes and then flip it and bake it again. It really gets those like crispy edges like a fried egg. And then I would just eat it on a sandwich, like an English muffin with tempeh bacon and avocado. Eggs in baking, I usually use flax eggs. So a flax egg is 1 tablespoon of ground flax or flax meal to 3 tablespoons of warm water. So if you use warm water, it gets goopy faster. 10,000 steps, that is true. In fact, I'm pretty sure Dr. Greger just did a video on the health status of plant-based burgers, and he said that the Beyond Burger is healthier than an animal burger, but really the veggie burger is healthier than that. So it's more asking yourself, healthier than what? I will send you the call, the link for the call. I'll put it in the replay email that I send out tonight. Meat and dairy substitutes are expensive. Hi, Leah. The name of the tahini is the Mighty Sesame. Thank you. I have lost 35 pounds, actually almost 40 pounds. Let's see. Spinning these implementation because different levels of their goal of their eat more plants goal that sometimes it's almost too much, which is why I really like to get back in there and help you design that next step. Soy milk makes you gag. Interesting. So some other milk options that I really like, if you have it near where you are, Elmhurst. They are actually a former dairy company out of New York, and they make very clean milk, milked nuts. They've milked walnuts, they've milked almonds, they've milked oats. They have some really cool products. They're good. And then there's a couple of other cleaner products on the market. When I say cleaner, I just mean low ingredients. Malk brand, MALK. They are another cleaner one. I think somebody just posted on Instagram that they came out with an oat milk. I have not seen that, but we haven't been at any of the fancier stores, so we usually end up with the shelf-stable soy milk. Let's see, an oil-free hummus recipe. So I have an oil-free hummus recipe on veginspired.com. I'm happy to share that with you. Thank you, Sonia. I definitely say keep it simple. Listen, yeah. I could load you down with thousands of ingredients and tell you all the things to buy and all this stuff. But when it comes down to it, the only way you're going to be able to make this change sustainable is if it's simple. Oh, I am here. I don't know what's happening. My internet's going out. So somebody give me a thumbs up that you can hear me. Beverly, definitely your nice meal at a time. Unsweetened almond milk is good. Artichoke recipes. I usually use canned artichokes because I'm afraid of the choke. Plant-based butters, dressings, cheeses, sauces, and burgers. I can help with that for sure. Black salt. So we found black salt at Whole Foods, but you could probably get it at Amazon, or if there's like a health food or bulk spice food store. So I do not use a tofu press. I have done the freeze method where you freeze it. You freeze it and then you thaw it, and then you drain out the excess, and it helps to soak in any marinades. I like tofu as it is though, so I don't really press it, but some people swear by the press that it makes it have such a different texture. Applesauce for eggs and baking is awesome. Recipes with beets, tamales, pizza, and stuffed peppers. I love this. I love beets. I have some great recipes for beets. Okay, 40 pounds. So I started my whole food plant-based way of eating on December 1st of 2019. And by June of 2020, I had lost 35 pounds. And then I have maintained it with some not so great habits, but doing the best I can over the last 6 months. So it was another 5 pounds in those last 6 months. So I really haven't been super focused on it. Writing the cookbook was, took me, I felt like I couldn't direct my attention on all things. Even though it's a whole food plant-based cookbook, it is different to how I was eating, because I was eating very high carb to lose those 35 pounds. And so, it's just a different way of whole food plant-based is a little bit different than high carb. High carb is really about starch loading. Your plate is mostly starches and some veggies and not a lot of nuts, not a lot of seeds, things like that, not a lot of avocado. And so, those things have crept back in while we wrote the cookbook, and I haven't gotten back to cutting them out again. Yes, sprouted plate, that is for sure. Finding what works, very good advice. You can hear me, thank you. I don't know why my internet's so bad today. We made it 2.5 days. Oh, you're saying you can't see the video. Oh, I'm so sad. Oh, all right. I don't know what's going on. So keep me, 94 pounds. Awesome. I love this. The, Thank you so much for sharing that. And you're currently following Dr. McDougall's Starch Solution. That's good. That's good. So the 50-50 plate is awesome. I found that I really just ate starches until I was full. And of course, I always had a salad or a veggie along with that. It's fine. It's to speed up weight loss. I don't know how sustainable it is because I didn't try necessarily measuring out 50-50. But I do, I'm a full believer in the starch solution. I had been told my whole life that carbs make you fat, and then to be able to eat that way and lose that much weight and feel so good in my skin and feel so good about myself and get that confidence back, it really is a game changer for me, and it's something I'm very passionate about. So I've been talking for 54 minutes, which is the longest session we've had. I apologize about my internet. I will fix that for tomorrow. If you all have any questions, don't hesitate to message me. I will get you the link for booking your implementation call. And, I'm really proud of you for showing up, and I'm so excited. And thank you for staying interactive with me in the chat and for tolerating my poor internet. I'm just disappointed in its ability to work tonight. But I appreciate you, and I love having you here, and I will see you same time tomorrow. And we are talking meal planning, which is the number one thing that you all request. So make sure you're here for the whole session. You're ready to go. 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, all about meal planning. You are more than welcome, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.